I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was pretty disappointed when I first saw that this year's Cars Toon diecast lineup only included 3 cars: Komodo, Yokoza, and Manji, 3 of the most commonly re-released Tokyo Mater items. After what we got last year, I was really excited to see what they do for 2024. I was really hoping we would get more new Tokyo Mater cars or more significant ones, or that Mattel would perhaps switch and start making cars based on a different Cars Toon. But instead, we just got 3 items, which was pretty disappointing to me. And while it is nice to see Komodo, Yokoza, and Manji return, I really wish we just got something more or something a bit different. My disappointment, however, was kind of put off to the side a bit, stored off to the side, when I saw this year's re-release of Komodo and learned that it was completely different from his original release. I always love it when Thailand goes back to older diecasts and for their re-releases decide to make changes in an attempt to make them more accurate. And while they aren't always improvements, items like their Meldorado or 2020 Holly Shiftwall certainly come to mind, there are more than enough cases of times where Thailand has made updates that are equal to or even better than the original diecasts, like 2022 Thailand Otis, or the 2022 Holly, where they went back and fixed her again and made her probably the best, most color-accurate Holly we've ever gotten. So to see them do this for Komodo definitely piqued my interest. In the Cars Toon, Komodo looks like this. So you can see he certainly is pretty shiny and metallic, and it made me realize that the original probably should have been metallic, but just wasn't. So does this new Komodo hold up? Well, let's find out. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another review and to another 2024 Cars Diecast review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at this year's re-release of Komodo, so let's get started. On the card back, unfortunately, we still have this image of Mater. Despite Cars Toon cars being in the main line now, they're still just throwing an image of Mater on the card backs, which is really a shame. It would be really, really nice if they do original art for these characters. Instead, they started doing that for the 2-packs. If only the singles could get the same treatment. It only really makes sense if you know what the older Cars Toon packaging style looked like, whereas either this one with Mater or basically this packaging but with a Mater in the background. You know, both times back then it wasn't in the main line, so we could kind of excuse it, you know, but nowadays it is a little awkward to see Mater there. It almost looks like an error. As seen in Tokyo Mater, this little card was used on the 2013-2017 Cars Toon releases. On the back, we have Patoka, Drift Party, Mater, Kabuto, and Ito-san, which is really strange because these were last year's Tokyo Mater releases, and none of them are back for 2024. So it is kind of strange to see items from last year back on the packaging for this year, even though they are based on the same property. Pretty interesting. I've been saying that with them not changing the packaging style for the past few years, Cars Diecast line, the years have really started to mesh together for me, and that's certainly not helping. I think it would have been much better if they just put all of this year's releases, all 3 of them, on the back instead. Certainly an interesting choice. Anyway, here is Komodo out of the package, and he looks pretty interesting. I'm honestly a little torn on this item because he looks really, really cool in the proper lighting. If you get a bright light shining on him, he looks absolutely incredible. Look at that. That looks awesome. I think he looks a bit more dull in slightly darker lighting like what we have here. But again, you bring him up to a more well-lit area and he looks absolutely incredible. You know what? For the rest of this review, we're taking him to the top of my air conditioner. No, it's too dark up there. No, but for real, he looks really, really great like this. Look at that. Super cool. Now, the thing with this is, honestly, I don't know how accurate it is. Definitely when it appears a darker color, it's not all that accurate to the short. Even when it appears lighter, when light hits on it the right way, it's not all that accurate to the short. I think, you know, the perfect Komodo color scheme would be this made metallic. I think this is just genuinely a bit too dark compared to how the character looks. When it's held up to light, definitely looks a bit better and a bit more accurate, but I think in general it has to be a bit of a lighter green, just generally speaking. Regardless, I honestly really don't mind. This is a case where I can kind of throw accuracy out the window because this is just a really, really good looking item. I'm willing to excuse the fact that maybe it's not the most accurate, you know, but in the short, Komodo is metallic, and while they should have used a lighter metallic color on him, This item looks so good, I can definitely excuse it and confidently say that neither of these are the definitive Komodo, but some sort of combination Dragon Ball Z fusion of them probably would be instead. This metallic paint job with a lighter green color I think would be ideal. But now that we've gotten that point out of the way, let's take a closer look at Komodo himself. He's got a slightly different expression. You always see that with Thailand variants. They just do a slightly different take on how they do the eyes and stuff, and it causes some characters to look like they're making different faces. In the case of Komodo, he definitely looks quite a bit angrier, which I think actually matches the short quite a bit better. Taking a look at the front here, we have these 2 red stripes on his hood, which definitely look pretty cool, but in certain lighting can maybe blend in a bit with the metallic coloring on him. Not really on camera, but in person, it does appear a little dull sometimes. Regardless, still looks really, really cool. Look at that. This looks sick. This looks so cool. He looks really great. Have you guys ever seen me say that, like, I don't care how accurate it is, I just think it looks cool? Because this is definitely a case of that. This metallic green that's also sort of gold is really, really great looking. It's just so fascinating, the color they chose for this character. And again, it's not the most accurate thing out there, but it looks good. It really does. It just looks great. You got these very cool headlights here that are made to kind of look like scales. Of course, he is named Komodo after all, and we've got all these scales on the side, as well as scales up top. He's also got his little spoiler up there. I like that they also changed the color of the spoiler to match the rest of him, instead of just reusing, you know, the design for the spoiler here. That is pretty nice to see. Look at that. He just looks so good. We've got his wheels there, which are a darker green. I don't know how I feel about that. I think I prefer the lighter green on the original. I checked the short, and you don't really get a good look at Komodo's wheels in it. So I guess it's up to our own interpretation. Personally, I prefer the lighter green wheels than the darker green wheels. Yeah, it just makes this whole Komodo, contributes to the fact that it is a bit too dark in terms of color. Definitely would have preferred those lighter wheels, but maybe they wouldn't look as good on the darker metallic body. I'm not sure. Moving around to the back, you've got his window. You can see his windows are actually different color, which is interesting. The type of window color we see on a lot of cars diecast these days compared to black windows on the older Komodo. This, in case you were wondering, is the 2016 release of Komodo. I always found it strange that he doesn't have any detailing on the back, but it is always cool to see those backlights, which look pretty great, pretty interesting. They always reminded me of like Lego pieces with like studs sticking out. Speaking of studs, look at all those studs, those scales up on top of Komodo, looking pretty nice. There is a look at the other side, which of course is going to be pretty much identical. Of course, for those of you who don't know, Komodo is pretty much based on Wingo in terms of the body shaping. Of course, he doesn't have the spoiler and all that. And finally, there is a look at the base. Certainly a pretty great looking car. Like I said earlier on in the review, I think that the definitive Komodo exists by combining these two. But for the time being, I have no complaints. You know, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that they made this. Absolutely love how it looks. I love when they go back and make new items. You know, the only complaint is that it's a little too dark, but I could completely overlook that because it just looks really, really good. Something that I'm noticing just now is that he actually has a plastic mouth plate, so the color of the metal and plastic parts don't completely line up. And I guess that could be seen as a little distracting, but it's very hard to notice. I think he looks perfectly fine, but it is strange to see a mouth plate when I think the last Komodo release here, yeah, it had a unibody. But like I was saying before, I think a fusion of these two would be the perfect Komodo, but I certainly don't mind having these two different options for him. I don't think they need to go back and try to fix him again. I think for the time being, for now, and for the foreseeable future, this is a perfectly fine Komodo to stick with. I don't think anybody's complaining about a car that looks this cool. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.